Hello, everyone. Bryan Johnson here with Soulivity. Listen, I want to welcome you to a very special program that we created just for you to say thank you. Thank you for the years of support and for standing by Soulivity Magazine as we support you and you becoming the best person and living your best life. We're going to continue to do it, and we want you to live this life in every single moment. As I think about everything that we've done over the last few years, one of my most important and rewarding experiences, I would say, has been to host our Soulivity Live specials. You know, we have over 75 of them over the last few years. And, you know, I've interviewed celebrities, I've interviewed authors and thought leaders and just purely just inspirational people. And I can't wait to do more. Yes, and we're going to do more. So, you know, we've got a lot more new content coming out in the next year and can't wait to share it with you. But before we go into the future, I thought that it's always good for us to go into the past and kind of like look at where we began and where we're going. And so I found these special little nuggets from our past shows that are some of my personal favorites that I want to share with you. So sit back, relax, grab your favorite glass of wine or your favorite snack and enjoy Soulivity Live.
My name is Bryan Westley Johnson, and I want to welcome you to another edition of Soulivity Live. So happy to have you here, man. My sister, how are you?
Hey.
This lens, right? Yeah. we might need some more wine for this.
There she is. How you doing? Hey, my sister, Mademoiselle.
That is the most amazing introduction I have ever heard.
Oh, this is Bryan Westley Johnson saying thank you for joining us tonight. This is Bryan Westley Johnson saying thanks to all of you for joining us tonight. So with that, I'm going to say good night, everybody.
Good night.
So let's kick our special off with a clip with one of our interviews from 2017. This is a clip with actress Jade Tailor, a beautiful and wonderful person that I was introduced to in 2017, who is purely magical. And she, at that time, was part of Sci-Fi Channel's The Magicians. The series was a hit, and I got a chance to just talk to her about her journey and where things were going in her life. And so the interview kind of strayed into, at that time, what was an important issue, which was the Me Too movement. And I'll just let the clip speak for itself.
Where do I begin? I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that people are now speaking out because, you know, they always say, like, I always make this, you know, AA reference, not that I'm in AA, but it's, I think, a really poignant statement is the first step is admitting our problems, right? So the first step is admitting it. The first step is speaking out. The first step is awareness, and speaking is the first step in healing. Right. And so I'm beyond grateful that we are now in a place where people are speaking out about it. People are like actually dealing with the repercussions of their actions for the first time. Right. I mean, I was on set the other day. This was so crazy. So I was on set the other day. We were in one of these elaborate sets, and we're on this huge, like, throne bed. I'm on one side of it looking at my camera because I was doing this silly recording thing I basically did a music video for our entire cast and crew. And so I was shooting that day, and our director was on the other side of the bed. He was sitting on the bed on like in the corner with his foot on the ground, and I'm like laying on the other, way on the other side. And our camera guy comes by jovially saying, "Oh, good, his foot's on the ground, then you're okay." But there was actually a rule years ago that if you had one foot on the ground, then it wasn't sexual harassment.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I learned something new today.
Isn't that crazy? So I was like, what are you talking about, Tenzin? This is like, that's a silly, silly statement. And he's like, no, this was actually a rule. So I looked it up, and it was actually a thing. And I just find it so fascinating. I mean, we've come a very, very, very long way since the old days of Hollywood. I know I've studied about a specific actress that I'm not going to mention right now, but because I'm writing a script about her. So you'll see. But that dealt with a lot of sexism, and just learning about how she was basically coerced into doing like a nude scene and like a scene where she had to like assimilate a sex scene when she was by herself, but the director forced her into doing it. Anyways, just like we've been dealing with this for, years and years and years. So I'm so grateful that it's finally coming to a head. People are finally talking about it. But I also think there's a little bit of an issue right now with victimization. Mm-hmm. And so this is where the controversial statement comes in.
Right. I see where you're going. Go for it.
Yeah, so there's a couple things. One, I think there's a huge difference between somebody actually being sexually assaulted and raped, or sexually assaulted, raped, verbally assaulted, all of these things, and then somebody like being somewhat inappropriate. Like, for instance, like taking a photo and somebody like putting their hand on someone's butt, Okay. I think, yes, that's absolutely inappropriate, and that should not happen.
Right.
Yet, I think some people are coming forward and saying things like it ruined my life for like a little photo like that happening. Mm-hmm. Yes, I should be reprimanded for it.
Right.
But I don't want women to be victimizing themselves to the point where they're not accredited and they're not taken seriously for these accusations. Okay. And there's a fine line there. It's like people are saying, "Oh, my life has been ruined," versus going, "That was inappropriate, and this person should not be doing that, and they should be reprimanded for it."
Right.
The difference between that kind of strength and the victimization, and I think we are at a risk of creating a different paradigm of women being victims rather than women coming forward in a very strong manner saying, "I'm not going to tolerate this kind of behavior."
Gotcha. Okay.
I have been following Reza Aslan's career for a long time. And Reza has, in part through his books, really helped me ground myself in some of the history around religion, God, Spirit, the life of Jesus Christ, and how this all relates to our world around us. I have two clips for him here. And the first clip is him talking about what is the soul. And the next one is about how our own personal perspectives can influence how we perceive religion.
There is a part of us that isn't material, that is eternal. We have, and I laid out, in the book, ample evidence of that belief going back not just to the very beginning of our species, Homo sapiens, but as I say, even in previous species of humans before our species even existed. We are, as a lot of modern psychological studies have shown, born with this belief. It's embedded in our brains. In fact, it's a belief that you have to unlearn right? It's not a learned belief. It's something that you have to that you have to be taught isn't true.
Right.
And for about 200 years now, anthropologists and sociologists and cognitive scientists and evolutionary theorists have tried to figure out why is it this case? Why is this universal belief in the soul, this ever-present belief that exists in all people throughout all time, in every religion, in every corner of the world, and as I say, even before we existed? Why? And I'm just gonna cut to the chase and tell you, we don't know. We have no idea. The best answer that science has been able to come up with is that it's just some accident, some trick of the mind. That's what it is. And listen, that's not a bad theory. It's a theory. Right. It can't be proven, can't be disproven. Right. But it's a theory that it's just a trick of the mind. It's an accident of evolution. I guess what I'm arguing is that an equally good theory is that it's not an accident, that it's deliberate, that it's by design, that this is who we are. Right. That we are meant to believe that there is something beyond the material realm, and that it's embedded in our brains. Again, no way you can prove that either. And so it's all just, it comes down to the individual and what the individual, him or herself, believes. But what cannot be denied is the universal nature of this belief. It's our first belief, and it's our most comprehensive, most universal belief, and it is a belief that we are increasingly recognizing we're born with.
I know your time is limited, but I just wanted to kind of squeeze this in because this is something that's related to everything that we're talking about. And
sure is.
I can't in good consciousness not talk about it. So,
well, look, if we have this compulsion to conceive of God as a divine being who looks and thinks and acts and feels like we do, then what that means is that we create a God who basically becomes a projection of our biases and our bigotries, our virtues and our vices. A God that suddenly has our politics, our social views, right? And so, of course, I mean, that makes perfect sense why then you see religion become such a destructive force in the world. How religion can be used to fuel violence and bigotry. And how religion can be used to manipulate people into voting against their interests. How religion can be used, as it's being used right now in Alabama, to excuse pedophilia and child molestation. And, if you're a good, faithful person, you got to be scratching your head and thinking to yourself, what the hell is going on? How can this possibly be? And the answer is simple. When you create a God that's just a divine reflection of yourself, then you implant in God everything that's good and bad about you. And so we then we construct these religions based on our own strengths and our own weaknesses. And so, there's a lot of ways to get around this. There's ways to, I think, promote peaceful interpretations of religion and for people of faith to make their voices heard and to drown out those who use faith for evil purposes. But in the end, it all comes back to this cognitive impulse that we've been talking about all along. And so I end the book with an appeal. What I'm asking people to do is recognize this unconscious impulse that we have and to do something about it, to stop thinking of God in human terms, to dehumanize God, if you will, and instead think about God the way our ancient ancestors, Adam and Eve, did, frankly, the Homo sapien version of Adam and Eve, as the divine nature of the universe, as the force that underlines all things. If we figure out a way to construct our gods not as some kind of divine personality, but as a divine force, then you recognize that God is much bigger than any one religion. Right. That people of faith have far more in common with each other than their dogmas or their doctrines or their institutions. And I think that really is not just a recipe for a much deeper spirituality, but it's a recipe for a modern spirituality, one that allows someone to have that deep, meaningful experience of the divine in the world without the baggage of these man-made religions.
Right.
You know how when you meet somebody for the first time and how it feels like you've known them for a very, very long time? That's how it was when I met Geneva Carr during the show. Amazing personality, amazing person, very insightful. And though we talked about different things, there was one special thing that she brought up around living your life and being authentic. Geneva had a major choice to make in her career, and she decided to make a choice where she wanted to live from her heart. So enjoy this little nugget from her.
As I was doing my homework on you, you had an experience with Helen Mirren, right? Where did you have that experience with her?
Well, let me get you something. This is a little picture from Tailor. Now, 2015, I was nominated for a Tony along with several of my friends in an amazing show called Hand to God. And you can see behind me, I have the poster from the Off-Broadway, the Off-Broadway, and the Broadway. And I was nominated against and happily lost to Helen Mirren. And I'm going to tell you, I've met her several times during that experience, but the best was you get nominated on a Tuesday morning. Mm-hmm. And Wednesday, before you have to do a matinee and an evening show, you have about 50 interviews. Wow. And I went to go do all I cared about was seeing Helen Mirren, because there's so much rush and bumble. They actually don't introduce you to anyone. And as I was leaving, this event of all these interviews, I see in the distance Helen leaving. And of course, she looks amazing. She has this gorgeous, like canary yellow Dolce & Gabbana jacket on. And I said, Helen! Helen! She finally said, it's Geneva Carr! And she said, oh, darling, enjoy every moment.
Oh, that's all. Spot on.
Who I was, which, I was like, Helen Mirren knows who I am. Because, when she got nominated, she's like, who's Geneva Carr? But she said that to me, and I was having dinner with my boyfriend last night, and he brought that up.
What?
Something he said. We say to each other, darling, enjoy every moment. There is something about that day in my life, and she said that to me. It is a lesson for living every day. Oh. This moment is it. And what an incredibly generous thing to say.
Wow.
She said, I know who you are. I recognize you. I see you. I respect you.
Wow.
And I lost to her very happily. It was the best night of my life. She came to see our show as soon as she had a day off from her show. And then she came backstage, and we got to, spend time with her. And she had not a stitch of makeup on, did the pictures, did the whole 9 yards. And she said to me, this is my first day off since the Tonys. I had to beat you before I saw you.
Wow.
And
wow.
That's just how you do it. That is how you do life.
When I read that about your experience, and of course, when you meet her, she's just purely authentic. Yes. By the way, her French is flawless.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, she said that she spent like 15 years in France. So next time you make sure you speak to her. But do you feel as though, you kind of, when I read it, I didn't read it like the normal kind of thing where people say, oh, well, you know, meeting her was like, oh, just so wonderful, whatever it is. I really felt, because we've talked before, I really felt as though this was like a foundational, like a milestone for you, right? Tell me how that, I mean, did you feel like the decisions that you made years ago to leave Wall Street and actually pursue your passion, was that kind of like, did it go back to that and you're like, yeah, I made the right decision?
I would be lying if I said that that moment didn't crystallize that I made the right decision, that it didn't erase the doubts and the insecurity and, you know, the being broke.
Yeah.
But I have to tell you that as important as that moment was, and it continues to be important in my life, it's once you have that, it's this tiny little feeling of security no matter what goes wrong. But I also have to say this because if there are any younger actors or even actors my age watching, doing what you love to do and making the decision to do that, regardless of recognition or money or fame or whatever all those other things are, is so important. And I have a very dear friend of mine that is in a show right now. He's doing incredibly well. He's getting a lot of attention. And he had said, gosh, you know, do I get a press person? And somebody gave me this advice years ago. So many years ago, I'd be embarrassed to tell you, but he said, do what you have to do. If you're, you know, depressed, find a therapist, get help. If you're an addict, get help. Be the purest person you can be and face your day honestly every day. And when you're ready, the business will find you.
Wow.
And I said that to my friend. I said, what you are doing is so profound and so good. Don't doubt that they are looking for you.
Right.
And
Right.
I had many a hard day. Financially, it was very difficult. I made a lot of sacrifices, but I enjoyed every minute of it. I wanted to act, and hand to God, the show that went to Broadway with some of my closest friends. I'm having dinner with the director tonight. And he's doing incredibly well. He's doing his third show on Broadway right now since we worked together.
Wow.
We came up together. You know, we were just people making plays. We were, some of us young, some of us not as young as we'd like to be,
Right.
making great plays, and people were coming to see it. And when we started Hand to God, 74 people was the size of the house.
Wow.
And when we ended up, it ended up being almost 900 in the house. And
wow.
all of that experience was good. If you love what you do, you don't say, well, I have to go to work. I get to go to work. I get to go to bowl right now. And I know that everything I've done up to my life now led to this job. And this job is golden. It is golden because of the stories we get to tell and the people I get to work with. And it's, you know, I'm enjoying every moment, Helen. Just want you to know.
Aww. We got to get this to her.
Rick Worthy. Rick has been a friend of mine for 30 years. We're both from the Detroit area. When we met, it was like an instant connection between us. It was like we were family. And when I got the chance to interview him, I learned so much more about him that I didn't even know, even though we had known each other for that long. In these next couple of clips, he talks about the importance of perfecting your craft. As an actor, that's especially important, but I thought it was important for each of us to really take note of in our own lives. So enjoy.
Bryan, I can't tell you how many times I've been to parties or Oscar parties or this or that, and someone walks out on the red carpet, and then the person I'm standing next to just very casually says, "Oh, I think I want to be an actor. You know, I would love to look like that. You know, or how hard could it be? Or I think I'll maybe try to get some headshots and get an agent and
Right, like it's like
it's like that. Like it's as if it were as simple as walking into a grocery market and picking up a can of spaghetti or pasta or something or soup or something. I think I'll do it.
Tell us the truth. Tell us the truth. I mean, like, give us a little bit of. I mean, we've talked a little bit, but tell me. I mean, because we talked about empathy,
right?
And that's like one of the actor's greatest tools.
Yes.
But tell me a little bit more about that. Let's pull that string a little bit around, like, what does it mean? What is the work? What is the work ethic? I mean, because I remember we were talking at the end of filming of season 3.
Right.
The cast was working, and I'm talking about the full cast.
Right.
Was working their tails off to
all
make
day.
To make sure that season 3, number 1, was the highest quality.
Right.
Right. And then 2, that it hit the deadlines that you guys have set for yourselves.
Right. I don't think that people. I think a lot of people don't know what it's like to not only be an actor. Doesn't matter, theater, television, film, and I think a lot of people don't understand the work that it takes to create a television series or a film, regardless of whether or not it's a feature film or a short film. It takes a lot of work. And first, to become an actor, you have to know in your heart that that's who you are and what you are. I often look at myself as well, it's not what I do for a living so much as that's who I am. Yeah. And a lot of people say that, Oprah Winfrey's often said that, this is just who I am, it's what I do. Sometimes it doesn't really feel like work because that's when you're doing the right thing, and as Garcelle brilliantly said on your show this week, she said, if you're just there to get a paycheck, then you need to really rethink why you are calling yourself an actor. So you need to know that that's what you are or who you are, and that's what you love. And you have to know your craft. I cannot emphasize that enough. It's not a matter of just showing up in Hollywood and getting an agent, and
I'm here.
And here I am, hire me, and I've met, a lot of people like that, of all ages too, not just young people. So I come from theater. I have been on stage in front of hundreds of people, 20 people, 5 people. I give the same performance every time. It doesn't matter if Obama's sitting in the front row, which he hasn't yet, but or that'll be awesome to see President Obama sitting in the front row. But I've been, in front of people and performed and learned my craft, and that translated just so smoothly to the camera. And it's just a matter of sort of adjusting your performance to the lens.
One of the highlights of Soulivity Live was to interview Garcelle Beauvais. To call myself a fan of hers would not encompass how I feel about Garcelle in terms of just this personality. I had always heard that you see what you get, and that what you get is this wonderful and warm and very open and down-to-earth person. And when I interviewed her, they were right. So I wanted to include something from her for each of us to think about that has been a guiding principle in her life. I'm sure that she shares this with her own family, so I wanted to share it with you. So enjoy me and Garcelle Beauvais. See you. How do you find balance with acting, fundraising, producing, writing, and being a mom?
That's, I don't know sometimes. Sometimes it's really hard. I think, my kids obviously come first, and I try to do that as a parent. And even the other day, I was going for a walk with one of them, and I said, "You know, you're my priority, right?" And he's like, "Mom, I know," kind of rolling his eyes, but that's important to me.
Right.
I don't know. I just, you find a way to do it. I mean, you know, other parents do it. My mom did it.
Yeah.
I think you just, I love what I do. And so therefore I always want to do it in whatever capacity. And I think nowadays, being an artist, you're not boxed into one thing. I'm not just an actress or just a host or whatever. You get to do all kinds of things. And for me, it keeps it interesting. I don't want to be bored. I get bored easily. I want to keep doing things to challenge myself and create.
It doesn't feel like work for you, does it? Like work, right? I mean, there is work in it. But it doesn't
sometimes, yes, but not always. Not always. You know, like anything.
Right.
You know, there are days that are great, and there are days that I want to stay in bed and not come out. But at the end of the day, I love what I do.
Wow. Okay. I'm going to ask you the last question, and then we'll start kind of wrapping here. Living the life that you've had, and for those that may not be happy in their life situation, specifically professionally, what would be your words of inspiration for them?
Oh boy, that's a good question. You know, I think you have to stay true to who you are and what you really want. You have to really listen to your soul. If you're going to work just for a paycheck, I think sometimes that makes you unhappy. I think you have to go to work doing something that you love. And I remember Russell Simmons saying that what you do, if you love it enough, you would do it for free. Yeah. Right. And I think that's really true too. You have to persevere, especially in the you know, being an artist, there's a lot of rejection. There's a lot of, although I've been working so much, there's so many jobs that I didn't get.
Right.
And that's part of the process. But I think if you follow your truth, and that's really something you want to do, you got to persevere. You got to stay with it. You got to have a support system that tells you that, all right, you didn't get this one, but you know, the next one's coming around the corner. And it happens.
Wow. Thank you, Garcelle.
Well, thank you for joining us. I hope that these special little nuggets sit with you well as you move into the next days of your life. I hope that you will continue to perfect your own crafts and, you know, move into your own journeys with passion, purpose, and great quality living. We will be here to support you along the way. Until next time and until our next show, I want to say thank you for everything and